All right, folks, welcome back to our channel. Top 5 cities in Ontario sinking like a brick, being in trouble and being hit from every angle. At one point, these 5 cities were the actual jewel of real estate investment at one point, and they were the pinnacle of our manufacturing and industry in Ontario. But now, the story is completely different. So let's dive right into the video and let me share top 5 cities in trouble. All right, so as mentioned, we all know that Ontario is definitely the engine of the entire Canada, and Ontario can literally sink the entire Canada because it's the manufacturing engine, is the actual hub, it's the prosperity of Canada. Obviously, we have different cities and different towns and different provinces that contribute, but the manufacturing of the engine of Canada is being hit with tariffs, with immigration, and with so many other components. But let's get into the 5 cities. All right, so the first city on the list is Hamilton. The steel city is being hit directly by the US tariffs. People are being laid off. The hours of employment have been jigged and shifted, and we can definitely feel that particular stress and people worrying about their next paycheck and their actual employment. So therefore, the local businesses will also see that, right? Like they will see that economic shift. People don't feel as comfortable investing in Hamilton. Even if they live in Hamilton, they don't want to move around much. They don't want to do any shifts. And that directly impacts the city of Hamilton. But let's not forget, a few years ago, I would say personally, it started a decade ago, around maybe 2015, when Torontonians saw this opportunity of investing in cheap real estate in Hamilton. It's close proximity to Toronto. It's on the actual line of QEW towards Niagara Falls, and it was a perfect opportunity to buy cheap real estate and to build and to invest. Now, the actual story is completely shifted because people are trying to leave Hamilton as fast as possible, right? So their direct impact of Hamilton is Stoney Creek. And in Stoney Creek, at one point, I would say there was probably in the early 2000s, we saw that shift of a lot of new builds, Mattamy, Green Park, Fieldgate, all these big mega new builds that were, literally rising like mushrooms. All those times are over because it seems to be saturated, the prices are overinflated, and now we see that the actual prices are not feathering down, they're being slashed. We see properties that are on the market for months, some are even on the market for years. So Hamilton is definitely being hit. So on the list is Windsor, Ontario, obviously bordering the United States. Across from Windsor is Detroit. That's the automotive heart, the industrial and manufacturing. I also spoke to an engineer actually working on a Mustang development phases and stuff like that, and he's worried. He's trying to look for another job, right? So he's worrying that he will either be laid off or his hours will be cut. So then obviously I asked the question, well, did you just start working as a engineer? He's like, no, I'm a senior engineer, worked there for years, but now we can definitely feel that impact of tariffs. So how does it actually impact? Well, automotive manufacturing plants cut shifts, layoffs hitting thousands, US trade tensions, and EV transitions slowing orders big time. Families depending on plant income tightening spending. Housing market feeling ripple, listings stagnant, pre-approvals are down in Windsor. And if you have been to Windsor lately, you kind of feel it and you smell it in the air. But I want to go back to, I would say, 2015, because it seemed like that people from London, Ontario saw an enormous opportunity to invest in Windsor, right? So a lot of these like fourplexes, sixplexes, eightplexes, and those types of rejigging was happening in Windsor. Windsor was booming and growing, and it made sense. The dollar got you far in Windsor back in the day. However, we obviously hit the peak in Windsor of 2022, like the rest of Canada and all the provinces. And now the prices are definitely feeling it, and the atmosphere in general in Windsor is definitely having a hard time because people are definitely leaving, and the automotive industry is the heart of that city. Now, on the list is Kitchener and Waterloo, and you say, well, why Kitchener and Waterloo, right? Well, let's get into it. So tech meets manufacturing slowdown. Dual blow. Manufacturing sector is slowing down. Tech layoffs, startups plus large firms. Region once seen as a safe, innovative hub, losing momentum. Landlords seeing rising vacancies, rent softening, fewer bidding wars. Yes, so at one point that Tri-City, Kitchener, Cambridge, and Waterloo saw that growth, that tech was moving there, right? But like it seemed like that city, the Tri-City region always had issues, right? Like it had issues with connections, the 401 going there. It's always a mess. Like they obviously have a lot of construction. The biggest growth that I would like kind of remember was around like maybe 2005, 2003, 2008, right? Like a lot of development, a lot of new builds and a lot of that stuff. And then we had BlackBerry. Like we went forgot that we had a cell phone company that was thriving and that have seen the best keyboard ever on the planet when it comes to a phone, BBM and all of that stuff. So we forget that company went under. It seemed like overnight, right? Like it got eaten by iPhones and Samsung and all of that stuff. But like even the big giants at the time that felt that confidence, that pure confidence that BlackBerry as a whole will not go under, went under overnight, it seemed like, right? So there was always those challenges in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, and more tech was trying to replace that and manufacturing and all of that stuff, but it seemed like that it's unsuccessful because those tariffs are literally slashing the profits, and whenever there are no profits, you know what is happening. It's either you're gonna go in more debt to sustain yourself, or you're gonna go under, bankrupt, finished very quickly. And that definitely impacts real estate directly. Also, I would like to mention that during a period of time, right? And I would say the period was 2000 and I would say 18, right? Like it was very hard to find anything good in Cambridge, Kitchener, or Waterloo. Like the listings were so low, the inventory was so low, the prices kept booming, and then we hit that pandemic, and then it blew out of the proportion where a single dwelling, a property, like a house, detached home, like was easily $1 million plus. And I'm not even saying anything of significance. I'm just telling you like a 3-bedroom, like crappy little home. I shouldn't say crappy, like every house needs respect and a roof, and I get that. But I'm saying it's overblown, overvalued. And that particular Tri-City will definitely see that slash in price as we're moving forward. So this is a big one on the list, and it's the Niagara region, specifically Niagara Falls. We know at one point a lot of it was moving, right, along the QEW. Started Hamilton, Stony Creek, Grimsby, went into St. Catharines. A lot of people saw a lot of growth in St. Catharines. Then it started pushing all the way to Niagara Falls. So Niagara Falls being that, I would say, last station along the way of any significance, I would say, the last station, right? Like, you know, they're building Costco's and building all these hospitals and trying to build all the infrastructure around it, like trying to bring more people to the region because it made sense at one point. So what was bringing all of those people to actually Niagara Falls, right? So one, it was the promise of connectivity, right? Go train at one point will be connected to Niagara Falls. So that was that promise. The promise of affordability. People were moving there because it was affordable. It was still close. It still gave some kind of, I would say, tourism feel, or something was happening along the sides. And with tourism comes money and opportunity for growth and businesses. Well, during the pandemic, they got shifted and it got blown out of proportion, and we have seen prices literally double. People wanted to move there, yada, 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 close to the border, you name it, right? But now, with the tariffs being hit, like, people are not coming. Like the tourism got slashed in Niagara Falls, right? So everything else trickles down. The restaurants, hotels, mom and pop shops, businesses, real estate is not holding that value anymore. People are selling, they're trying to leave. A lot of new builds, that opportunity growth seemed like it's gone now in Niagara Falls, right? So people at one point started to shift, still remain in the region area. So they were shifting to Port Colborne, or they were shifting to Welland, like a little bit cheaper, right? But still there. But then they saw that even those little towns that still rely either on Niagara Falls or on St. Catharines saw huge price declines, because a lot of the investors along the way started fueling and started like literally buying all these investments, hoping to rent them out, because they were promising that population influx and the growth. So a lot of people got stuck in that transaction. I spoke to some and they're like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. And yes, there's a way you can do it. And the way is you list the market for the current market value price, and then you pray hard and eventually get an offer within months. And when you sell it, then you can move wherever you want to move, I guess, or I'm assuming. But at that point, nobody is willing to take that step because they're not willing to lose any money. Everybody wants to sell for the top dollar value when they bought it, plus some profit, so they can pay everyone else and they can walk. But guys, it doesn't work like that. It got shifted. Everything in Niagara Falls as a whole shifted. So we don't know. Like it feels like that Niagara Falls is kind of it's rusted from within, if that's the right word, and something major needs to happen, and it should happen to rejuvenate that particular I would say city of Niagara Falls. Now, having that claim, there's Niagara on the Lake, which is a completely different segment on its own, and it's kind of holding the prestige, unique aspect, right? So you really have to have money in order to live there, but it provides you with a different type of an environment and a lifestyle. All right, so let's move on. Number 5 on the list, I had to mention it, is Oshawa and Ajax. So that's the eastern part of Toronto. So let's get into it. Local presence is dying off very quickly. We'll get into that. Manufacturing hubs hollowing out, warehousing cuts shifts, local services shrinking as jobs base declines, younger families leaving, housing demand softens. Yes, at one point, I've heard a lot of that Toronto, Scarborough, North York was shifting towards the east because it made sense, a lot more land, a lot of these hubs, warehousing, stockpiling, stuff like that. Like they were building there because the dollar for value made sense, right? A lot of families saw that opportunity. There's a GO train connecting Oshawa to Union Station, downtown Toronto. So that was that opportunity. But everything else is mess. Like try to sit on 401. Either way, it'll take you an hour to get to Don Valley Parkway, right? So those are the segments that people are they enjoyed for a while, right? During, I would say, the pandemic, like less density on the highways. Employees did not or could not demand for you to get back to the office. You could work from home. You had all these perks that you loved and enjoyed. And then obviously when you have that funnel concentrated or laser focused on one city or region or town, obviously you will see prices rise. All the developers saw the opportunity. They started investing there and stuff like that. So what happens now, everything is shifting back to its original state. So people, most of the time, employers demand that they need to come back. They need to come back to work 3 days out of 5 a week. From next year, from January 2026, it'll be full time, 5 out of 5, right? Traffic will go insane. Imagine the population, insane, right? So all that shifts going back and forth. So then you see that the value just decreases because the next person buying it also needs to see the growth opportunity. If it's not the growth opportunity, they have to see something. They have to see a luxurious perk, time savings, something, right? But Oshawa Ajax doesn't offer anything, right? Except if it goes low enough, it's going to be price and price only, which to all of these lists, Windsor, Hamilton, Niagara Falls, what else did we have? Oshawa, like all these segments, Kitchener-Waterloo, all these segments need to come down to a, I'm not even saying reasonable price, I'm saying unbelievable price in order for people to bite that bullet and say, listen, I'm willing to be stuck in traffic for 2 hours each way to get to work and stuff like that. So that's something that's definitely shifting these top 5 cities on the list. So what's the bigger picture? So Ontario engine is stalling and we see it. Ontario produces 40% of Canadians' GDP. Let that sink in for a second. When it slows, the whole country feels it. Population keeps growing, immigration, but job base shrinking. Unstable mix. Real estate no longer buffered by demand, economic confidence eroding. And this is just it. We talked about that. I spoke about this in many of my other videos. Just because we are bringing more people and we physically have more count doesn't mean we will have growth opportunity or employment for these people, right? Like I'm all for immigration. We need it. We depend on it, right? But if you're really slicing it, like there's not enough pie for everyone to eat. Policy layers and what needs to change. Not blaming immigration, but bad policy, high costs, regulation, hurdles, layering over crisis. Yes, so these are layers on top of layers on top of layers. It would not be fair to blame somebody that just landed today to our country of Canada, but what we need to do, we, from our standpoint within our border, we have to have a plan what happens when it happens. We need our own algorithm, our own systems within the borders to say, okay, if we do this, this are 3 outcomes, this is the best outcome, so let's thrive or let's aim for that particular best outcome. You see what I'm saying? But we're just, I feel, just tossing those chips on the table and hoping that something eventually hits, right? All right, so let's summarize this. 5 cities, 5 different cities in 5 different locations, and they seem to be having the same issues. That's a big pattern. So are you seeing this in your city? I don't know where you live. You can comment below. You can tell me what you feel. It doesn't have to be a big city. It could be a town. I've been to many towns. I did, videos in Sudbury's and Sault Ste. Marie and all over Ontario, and just share what you feel and what you see in the city and what you kind of fear is the worst thing that could possibly happen. So I hope you gained some value out of this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.